Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, mindset elevation coach, intentional living guide, and publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine. And I have to tell you, this is going to be a truly inspired conversation. I am joined by a dear friend, a joy spreader, a best-selling author and transformational coach, Kristi Ling Spencer, who is here to share some of her fresh ideas and tips for some of my favorite subjects: happiness, success, and creating the life we desire. I got to tell you, I know, because I've known her for so long, that you are going to be inspired to rethink the definition of happiness and how to approach it, as well as learn how focusing on your own happiness and joy can lead you to greater success in all areas. Kristi Ling Spencer is a best-selling author, life coach, inspirational speaker, and host of the Joy School podcast, who works to help others create a firm foundation for joy, well-being, and success. She's been seen in Oprah Daily, Women's Health, Entrepreneur, Mashable, CNN, Women's Day, and many more. Her acclaimed book, Operation Happiness: The Three-Step Plan to Creating a Life of Lasting Joy, Abundant Energy, and Radical Bliss, was actually chosen by Success Magazine as one of the best books to make you successful. My friends, you can subscribe to her podcast, follow her on social media, and access her free masterclass, and you want this. It's called 11 Habits of the Happiest People. You can go check that out at KristiLingSpencer.com. Kristi, I've been waiting for this conversation, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Linda. I'm so excited to be with you.
You know, I was trying to think, we go way back. We've been loving each other's messages and life missions for what? Well over a decade.
It's amazing. And it's amazing how fast time flies as well, because I can't believe it's been that long, but that's so magical.
It is, and I'm so grateful that we've connected. You've written the foreword for one of my books, actually a couple of my books, and you have written a best-selling book, which I've shared in the Aspire Mag Top 10, and you've written for Aspire, and actually was recently the cover feature for Aspire. Here's why I'm so drawn to your message, and you know, I'm one of your I'm one of your followers on social media because of all the posts you share to remind all of us that joy and happiness is within reach, isn't it, my friend?
Absolutely. And there are certain approaches that we're not taught when we're growing up or even as young adults that can make a huge difference. And so that's really my mission, is to sort of be like, here's happiness 101, here's joy 101. And because we didn't learn these things, but there are some tools and techniques that are so effective, and also perspective shifts, because there are a lot of rumors and misinformation out there about happiness and joy and success and all the things. And I'm sure you've heard many of them as well.
Yeah, and for me, I used to believe happiness was out there, right? So I was always chasing. I was always thinking the next thing would bring me happiness. So why don't we talk about your book, Operation Happiness, what they can expect in it, and then I really want to talk about some of those myths, because I know we've all fallen for them, haven't we, Kristi?
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. And myth busting around the personal development space and happiness is one of my passions, because one of my favorite things to hear when I speak at an event or when I'm coaching is, oh, wow, I never thought of it that way. And, when you can have those light bulb moments that really create a shift in your life, that is my passion. And that feeds me. And with Operation Happiness, and by the way, I'm so excited. I think you might be the first one I'm telling this to, but I'm working on the paperback release for 2024 for Operation Happiness. I'm so excited. Um,
Yay.
yeah, it's really exciting. And so that book was born out of my own transformation when I was trying to redesign my own life and really discover how to be a happier person, how to be the happiest version of myself and get out of the years of spinning in mediocrity and low energy and just feeling stressed out all the time. And I knew there had to be a better way. And when I was going through my own transformation, I dove in and read every book I could find on happiness and personal development and success and creating joy and all the things. And I took all the workshops. But one of the things that I realized in going through that journey was that many of the books on happiness were very like scientific or written in a very educational textbooky kind of way. And what I was craving was relatability. I wanted to read something that could make a huge difference in my life that I also related to, that had stories. And when I went through my journey and I discovered some of these key shifts that anyone can make to become happier and really change their life, and it worked for me, I wanted to shout these things from the rooftops. And I started blogging and then was invited to do a TEDx talk, which has tens of thousands of people around the world have seen that talk. And the book was really born out of that because I thought, well, I should take all of this, put it into that book that I was craving when I was going through my transformation and really share my story in a vulnerable way, but with also the how-tos of here's how you do this technique. Here's the perspective shift that changed my life. Put it all into that book. And I've had so much feedback on what a unique, almost like I created a hybrid genre of books because it's part memoir and part how-to. And I think that's what makes it so special. And I'm excited to share some of the messages with you.
And I love that because for me, how I take in information, how I have transformed my life is exactly what you said, be relatable and give me steps that I can implement, that I can take action on so I can create transformation. Don't talk at me, talk to me. And that's what Operation Happiness was for me when I read it,
Oh,
right?
thank you. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted. You know, we're all in this together, and I wanted to write something that was also a good read, in addition to having great information in it, but to show people that they're not alone, that other people have been through this journey and they have things to share, right? So I think that's so important. And the first perspective shift, by the way, which was so huge, it was the change for everything, was I came across this quote when I was in my own journey to change my life from the philosopher Aristotle. And it said, happiness is a state of activity. And when I saw that quote, this light went on and I was like, wait a minute. I've been doing this all wrong because you're taught, oh, happiness is a choice. All you have to do is choose it and you'll be happy. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The only part of it that's a choice is choosing to wake up each day and take the action and do the work that it takes to create a happy life. That is a massive shift right there. And that's what started it all.
And I love that you shared that because as you shared the quote, and we've had many conversations on this, you and myself. I used to think, and in some ways I still do that, we choose happiness. But when I read your book and previous conversations, you're right. It isn't a choice that you just go, okay, I'm going to be happy. If you don't take the actions, if you don't implement changes in your life, it's not going to stay. It's not going to become part of your essence. And
That's
so,
right.
yeah, and in your book too, one of the other things I love is I love the part, the memoir style. That's what I'll be doing in my book because I believe in storytelling, right? Inspire Living
Yes.
Publishing is all about authentic storytelling, but your stories and how you tie them in to the myth busting and the lessons, that's what drives the wisdom home for me. right? As the
Really
reader.
believe that. Yes, because, I know for me, when I'm trying to remember something amazing that I heard a speaker say or that I read in a book, it's the story that helps me remember it.
It is definitely for me. That's how I've changed my life. I am passionate about women's stories, and how many times I can share how many times in my life when I was in a dark space, especially like 30 years ago, and I was still trying to find my way. I was in my 30s and pretty lost. It was picking up an anthology at a yard sale that completely changed the trajectory of my life. I remember reading it going, oh my God, there's others who have these feelings, who are
Right.
struggling with this. I'm not a unicorn. There's nothing wrong with me. And what you did in Operation Happiness by being so vulnerable and authentic and sharing is you did the same thing for the reader,
Well,
right?
thank
You made
you.
it.
Thank you. Yes. And that was so important to me. And what a lot of people don't know about me is at the time, so I wrote the original proposal for Operation Happiness while I was still married before. And I wrote that book proposal. And then my life fell apart and I went through a divorce that was very painful. And I actually put that proposal on the shelf for almost 2 years. And what I went through that next 2 years was like, when you were a little kid and you go to the ocean and you get caught in a wave and it just tumbles you and tumbles you.
Oh,
And
yes.
that was basically the next 2 years of my life after that. And when I felt like I was coming up for air again, and I felt like I had things to share, right? Because I knew I wasn't the only one to ever go through that kind of a life shift. I pulled the proposal out and I looked at it and I was like, this is going to be a completely different book now. And I completely rewrote the proposal and it became so much better, like next level. It's really amazing what going through very hard things in your life, what that can bring out of you. And I think that the universe just timed everything so beautifully. So a lot of people don't know. I do share in the book about that journey a bit, but a lot of people don't know that that was literally right before I wrote the proposal and started writing the book. I heard Wayne Dyer, and this was so inspiring to me. At the time I had just pulled the proposal out again, I heard Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, who was such an amazing mentor for me, who was speaking about when he wrote The Power of Intention. He had gone through a split with his wife of a very long time and was heartbroken and could barely get off the couch. And somebody prompted him and said, you should write your way out of this. And he pushed himself to write from his heart. And from that time in his life came the power of intention. And when I heard him say that, I thought, not only is now the right time for me to write this, I must write it now for it to be all it can be.
Oh, this is so powerful. And I have to tell you that Wayne Dyer book is one of my favorites. We're going to take a quick break, Kristi. We'll be back. I want to talk about that and so much more. We'll be back in a moment, my friends.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation and let's magnetize and monetize.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is the author of the best-selling book, Operation Happiness, Miss Kristi Ling Spencer. And Kristi, that story you just shared before the break is this book must come through me now. And you talked about the power of intention. The Power of Intention is a book I have listened to, and this is not an exaggeration, ask my clients, 60 to 70 times in the last 2 years since my surgery. It is on every walk with me. I am all about intentional life, intentional living, but I've had his physical book for God, 25 years. That book is everything to me. So when you said it, I was like, little whisper from the divine, because he's been my virtual mentor for decades. So when you talk about, when you went through that process of this book must come through me, it's going to be different than what I originally envisioned. What was your core drive for putting this out there? Because you were actually on the journey of calling in more happiness, right? You were searching for it yourself in that time period of your life. Is that what was driving you, your own healing and transformation? And oh God, I know you did a lot of research for this book too.
Oh, I did. I mean, countless hours of research and reading scientific studies. But fortunately for me, I'm one of those people who kind of nerds out on reading scientific studies. I love it. And anything that relates to information that we can use to change our lives, I love reading those studies and then breaking it down into short, digestible bits that people can really understand and take and apply to their life. And I wanted to do that in Operation Happiness. And because of that, there are so many great takeaways and nuggets in there. But yes, I knew it had to be a completely different book. So one of the things that in moving into it was the original version of it did not have a chapter on grief and loss and hard times and how to cultivate moments of joy and happiness while you're going through these things in life, because no one's going to escape those things. And so when I rewrote the proposal, I included a chapter on happiness during hard times and grief and loss. And I got a little bit of pushback. Some people didn't think that a book on happiness should cover those topics. And I said, wait a minute, that's like selling a car without tires. You have to address, when you're going to create your best life and become the happiest version of you, part of that is learning the skills of allowing yourself those moments of happiness and support, and knowing your happiness is always there for you underneath, even when it feels buried under an avalanche of things that are happening in your life, right? And it was so important to me to share that.
I think it was critical that was in there. I 100% agree. You know, everything I just experienced with surgeries with myself and Dana, and I still stayed aligned with joy and happiness.
That is the key, and so that's one of the things we're not taught, right? When we're growing up, when we're younger. I actually think that a course on happiness should be in every high school, but that's another conversation.
I've said that too. I'm like, we don't teach the life skills to these children that really matter, and this is one of them.
Right. Yes. I think about that often. I think, how did I get out of high school knowing how to balance a checkbook, which isn't even applicable to life anymore? But I didn't know one thing about my own mental health. I mean, when you think about it, that's really awful. And I think we're better about it now than back when I was in school, but there's still a lot there lacking. We're sort of sent out into the world without an instruction manual for how to be happy and be at peace and be a joyful person. We have to figure it out. And I know for me, I flailed for over a decade in that until I really started learning all of these tools and techniques. And so it was so important to me, to the point where I knew that this was my life's calling, was to share these things. And really, I like to break it down, and I use a lot of different titles and different frameworks and modalities, but it really all falls under Happiness 101, right? The course we all should have learned when we were younger.
I love that happiness 101, and it's it's the basics, but it's critical essence of who we are, what we desire too. Like without that foundation, which you teach in the book, it's like
Yes.
we're going through life blind. We keep looking outside ourselves for happiness. I know I did that for years. Like, I'll be happy when fill
Oh,
in the
right.
blank. I will be
Yes.
happy if. And I never realized that I could make conscious choices, take aligned action, and align with happiness. Now, does that phrase align with happiness? Um, what's your thoughts on that? That about we have to actually bring our energy into what we desire. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. And I love the word align. It's one of my favorite words. And aligning with happiness really is the key. And what it's about and the way to go to do that. And of course, it's different for everyone. But some of the things I teach in the book is that there are foundational habits that you can create, foundational habits and mindsets that help you each day to align with happiness, align with your personal peace, and align with the life you want to create. And so I always tell people the first place to begin with that is with your mornings. The way we live our mornings is the way we're going to experience our day. So it is so important when we wake up to begin aligning with happiness, as you said, through some sort of small spiritual practice in the morning, through some stillness, through avoiding reading emails for the first hour or two of your day, because then you're looking at what other people want from you and what other people want out of the day instead of what you want out of the day, right? So important to establish that with yourself first. One of the things I've started doing recently, and a lot of people choose a word of the year. I don't know if you've heard of this, Linda. Do you ever choose like a word of the year at the new year? Have you heard of that practice?
I used to, but I don't celebrate New Year's Eve. I celebrate my birthday, which is Friday the 27th. That's my year. So that's when I do it. I just don't do it at New Year's. But yeah, I did that for many years. I can remember nourish, play, create. But I have slacked the last few years. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, so this has been so great for me. So I recently each morning started choosing a word of the day.
Oh, I
And
like that.
oh, it's so good. Let me tell you, I do that. It's my own personal rule that I do that before I read my emails or check any social media. And sometimes I do it when I'm having my coffee, but it to choose a word of the day forces me to think about number one, how do I want to feel today? Number two, what do I want to accomplish today? And number three, what's the energy that I want to bring into today and experience today? And it helps me to think about all those things. And that right there is aligning with happiness. So important. So a word of the day, my word today is productive because I have a lot of things on my list. And so just aligning with that word is me knowing that I'm supported and that's my word. And I'm going to align everything with that and get it all done with ease and grace, right?
I love the idea of the word of the day. I don't actually pick a word of the day, but I do set my energy for the day. So I love what you said because you and I have a lot of similarities of how we love to navigate life with intention.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And having some kind of a little practice in the morning, whether whether that resonates with you to do a word of the day or whether you do a deep breathing exercise or a couple of minutes of stretching and yoga, whatever that is to connect with spirit, connect with your soul is so important because you're laying the foundation for your day. And moving into the rest of the day, one of the biggest things that supports our happiness is our habits and becoming highly aware of our own personal habits, both positive and negative, and then being willing to put the work in to create shifts in those areas is a huge part of becoming the happiest version of ourselves. And I know you talk about habit quite a bit.
Yeah, only because I had to live it, right? I had,
Yes.
for 35 years, I was a queen of self-sabotage. I couldn't figure out how to get out of my own way. And like I said, I thought happiness was outside me. So I was always searching and yearning. And it wasn't until I started living from the inside out instead of the outside in, which is what the world teaches us, the many
Yes.
practices. I was lost. So I had to completely transform my mindset, clear false beliefs that I picked up in those first 30 years. So I've been on this spiritual journey 32 years since an awakening in 91. But for me, that work is I could get emotional, is the greatest gift I ever gave myself. I'm not saying it was easy over the last 30 years, but it was the greatest gift I gave myself, to look at my habits, to look at my mindset, to like be more conscious of what was leading my life. Right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
fear and ego, or the spirit? I'm led by spirit, and that's joy, happiness, love. Is that how you see it too? It's like, what's leading us?
Absolutely. It's so powerful. And in there also comes personal responsibility, which is
Thank you.
that was so hard for me when I started looking in the mirror going, wow, some of this is actually my doing. How do I shift it? And taking that responsibility. But you know what? It also was so empowering, because when you realize that some of the things that have gone south in your life were actually a result of self-sabotage or negative habits, and you take responsibility for that, that is your power. That is a superpower, because that's where you can really start creating change. And I love too that you said that you used to think happiness was outside of you, right? And that's kind of what we're taught. I mean, back growing up, they teach, oh, become successful, go to school, get a job, buy a house, have a family, do all those things, and then you'll be happy. And the truth is, it's not success that leads to happiness. It's the opposite. It's
Yes.
happiness that leads to success, right? And if we're
Yes.
Yes. And if we're not happy in the journey, if we're not happy while we're in it, why are we even doing it, right? Why are we here if we're not having fun and we're not happy in the journey? Because that's really what it's all about.
Oh,
So,
that is, you're just like hitting my soul, because it's exactly how I feel. It's what I teach, but it's also been my truth in my journey. Personally, we're going to take another break, and I want to talk about that self-sabotaging habits too when we come back. We'll be back in a moment. I'm with Kristi Ling Spencer, author of the best-selling book, Operation Happiness. I invite you to go to KristiLingSpencer.com, grab that free masterclass, 11 Habits of the Happiest People. And I promise you, we'll be back in a moment.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Your worth is not determined by the number on the scale. You are enough right now, exactly as you are. If you're like many midlife women, you've thought, if I could just reach my ideal weight, I'd be so much happier. What we're really craving is our own love and acceptance, and Sarah Haas is that guide for your journey. Sarah is a women's weight release expert and body love coach, and walks alongside midlife women ready to say yes to self-care, self-compassion, and body love, so they can become the healthy, vibrant, and unapologetically confident women they're here to be. Her holistic approach integrates nutrition, body movement, and self-care to nurture body, mind, and spirit. Visit sarahhaaswellness.com for supportive resources, programs, and more for midlife women ready to reclaim their health.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Free your mind with Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I am so grateful that you've chose to circle up with myself and Kristi. We are talking about happiness, self-sabotage, creating intentional moaning practices. And something you said about one day you realized you like looked in the mirror basically and said, oh, I'm the cause of some of the stuff that I've been moaning and complaining about. I can so relate. I was like, oh, Linda, you're the common denominator in some of this. That was
That's
a big,
right.
yeah, that was a big thing when I was in my 30s because this is my story. This is not a judgment for anyone that may be feeling this. My story was it was easy to play the victim card. But this happened to me, and she did this, and he did this, and life was hard. And I realized I was the author of that story. And it was
Right.
more empowering when I said, no, I can consciously choose my thoughts, my beliefs. It'll take a lot of work. And what, like you said, Kristi, that moment of that decision to transform my life was empowering because now I was the creator of my story. I
Yes.
wasn't in the past write my script anymore.
It's about taking back your power, right? Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I love that you talk about changing the stories that we tell ourselves. I actually did a whole podcast episode on that because that was for me one of the most powerful things. They say you can't change the past, but you know what? In a small way, you kind of can, because if you look at stories that have happened to you in your life, things that have happened to you in your life, and you look at the stories that you've been telling yourself about that, about how that went, stories that have been bringing you down and holding you back. And then if you're willing to reframe the story and tell it in a different way that feels better and more empowering with different perspective, your entire energy changes about whatever that was that you went through. And we all have the power to change the stories that we're telling ourselves. It's magic, right?
It's so damn powerful. And it's funny, the authentic storytelling writing model that Inspire Living Publishing used since 2010 was actually birthed because of my own journey of changing my stories the 10 years before that. I had a re-script that, I don't know, that those defeating stories that I thought were my truth, and we all know they were just stories that we created.
That's
Um,
right.
and now I look back, some people will say, hey, Lynn, you've gone through so much in your life. And, I've been featured on NBC's about my life story on one of their old talk shows called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And what I say to them, I said, well, that's your lens that you're looking at it. But I choose now to look back at those years, at those experiences and go, oh, they made me who I am today. How can I erase any of them? If I erase any of them, Kristi, then I'm not who I am in this moment. And how do you feel about that? Like I rewrote the stories to more empowering stories, and I don't have the triggers of the past anymore. I see them as all part of creating this extraordinary woman that I am today. Same with you. All those experiences, right, made you who you are today. Is that how you feel too now that you're at this point in your journey and looking back?
Absolutely. And it's not that I wouldn't have rather a couple of the things never happened. And so
Yeah.
I just want to be clear that's not what we're saying, but we can't change what's happened to us in our life. We can just change the stories around it. So even the things that were like, hey, I don't care how many lessons I got out of that one, I still wish it never would have happened. even thinking of it that way, if we just change the story, it lightens the load. And there are some things that we can get out of everything. So we may not be able to change the past or eliminate things that have happened to us that weren't the best. We can know that all of that, like you said, has created who we are today. And, one thing I always like to remind people is that when we've been through something in our life, chances are there are other people who are going through that now. And when you're open and vulnerable and willing to share about it and have that wisdom and perspective that came from it, you can help others. And so I just think that is such a beautiful thing. But looking in the mirror, taking personal responsibility, looking at where we've contributed to things. And then second thing, looking back on some of the things that we've been allowing to hold us down and changing those stories. Oh my gosh, these are literally superpowers, Linda. So I love that you say that.
Yeah, and one of the things that really resonate with me about the story is you can, when you rewrite that story, whatever it may be about something in your past, for example, you can almost feel the energy release happen on every
Yes.
level, body, mind, and spirit. Because I've discovered, this is my personal truth, and I'm curious of your thoughts, all those stories, all the rehashing of the pain, the experiences creates this almost like, when you're a little kid, you go to the beach and you're trying to hold the beach ball underwater and it's taken so much work, and
Oh,
finally
yeah.
you
Right.
let
It's a
it
mental
go and
battle.
yes, and you let it go and it bounces in the air. When you finally do the work to rewrite your stories, integrate all the lessons, and heal some of the triggers, that's what it felt like to me. It felt like, whew, this was taking so much energy to hold those stories in my energy field, like the stories of, for me, victimhood, self-sabotage, etc., and shame around the stories, right? There was a
Oh,
lot of
yes.
shame. And
Right.
it's a healing on more levels than you can think.
That
Like I
is
said,
so
body, mind,
true.
spirit.
And I love that you say shame, because that's a big one for so many. And if there's something in your life that you feel shame around that's holding you back from happiness or joy, or your own inner peace in some way, take a look at that, because first of all, know you're not alone. Everybody has made mistakes or missteps or acted out of character at some point in their life. And those mistakes we learn and grow from, right? And maybe they weren't our best moments, but carrying that shame, it's not serving us in moving forward and blossoming into who we are today. The version we are today of ourselves is not the same person that made that mistake, those years ago. And so forgiving that person and knowing that she or he did the best they could at that time. And yes, they made a mistake, but we're all human and everybody has made mistakes and learned from them. So releasing shame really is a big one. So I love that you said that. The other one is, now I'm not a trauma expert. I don't really coach a lot around trauma, but I do touch on it a bit. Is retelling ourselves stories around past traumas can lighten up the effects of that. So one example is, I love that you bring up the beach ball example under the water. I had 2 incidents growing up where I nearly drowned, and they weren't just, oh, that could have been bad. No, they were literally both times I had to be rescued. And so I'm not sure why, but I then years later found myself afraid of water, afraid to go in above my knees into the ocean or a lake or anything. But I didn't link the two together until I started doing a lot of this personal development work. And I realized, wow, I think my fear of water comes from those incidents. And so when I looked at those 2 incidents for what they were, and I reshaped the stories around them, and I realized they were isolated. It wasn't something that was likely to happen again, and that I was kind of future tripping. Anytime I would put my toes in the water, my brain was immediately going there. But when I reshaped the stories and looked at them in a different way, all of a sudden that fear lifted. And now snorkeling and free diving and swimming in the ocean is one of my favorite things in life. Isn't that
Well,
amazing?
it's amazing, and I just love that story because for all our listeners, it says the power of the mind, the power of story. You can rescript your story at any time, my friends. And Kristi, that is just a powerful example of of shifting the energy you had held in your body and your spirit around water. And look at you now, snorkeling and doing all of the above.
Oh, I love it. It's a passion. And when I think about how much of a passion it is for me now, I just laugh when I think how many years I missed out on it, right? But, part of that journey too was taking a little bit of personal responsibility for the years of my life that I never looked at what the link was between the fear and between what happened to me when I was a child, because maybe I could have done that work sooner. And of course, I've forgiven that, but it also is a big lesson in really just being willing to self-examine the things that are linking together in our life and the stories we're telling ourselves. And the other thing too, it's about removal, right? Sometimes we're repeating thoughts that aren't serving us about different things, or we're repeating stories. And so removing things from our life that aren't serving us is not just about clutter and physical objects. Sometimes it's about mindsets and thought patterns. And one of the things I like to say is that when it comes to creating our happiest life and becoming the best and happiest version of ourselves, is that sometimes that has more to do with what we remove from our life than what we add to it.
It's so true. And what you said about looking at removing things, if there's something in our life that we don't feel aligned with anymore, whether it's an emotion, a habit, or something else, I love what you said, that we have to review these things, because if not, years go by and we're repeating that same pattern. But you
Yes,
said something earlier. We're going to take a quick break. We get yapping, girl, and I forget. It's so important because there's messages in everything that appears in our lives, and we
absolutely.
have to pay attention. So we're going to take another break, Kristi. When we come back, we can talk about that and more. And I'd love to know if you have like a mindset practice you can share that listeners can try, and we'll continue this conversation. So stay with us, everyone. We'll be back in a moment.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
We can all use a little more peace and joy in our lives. Don't you agree? Counselor, best-selling author, and self-nurturing expert Kelly Grimes of CultivatingPeaceandJoy.com is passionate about empowering overwhelmed and exhausted women to live with more peace, joy, and meaning through the practice of self-nurturing. Through her experience working with individuals, speaking, providing workshops, and teaching professional and leadership development to forward-thinking organizations, Kelly knows that nurturing peace in the world begins from the inside out. That's why she created the free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app that brings you beautiful self-nurturing reminders, guided meditations, empowering practice tools, and daily prompts with an inspiring question to guide your daily self-nurturing practice. Download your free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app today at cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
With me is Kristi Ling Spencer, best-selling author, life coach, inspirational speaker, and the host of the Joy School podcast. So, Kristi, we've covered so much, and I know you, as a woman, have so many mindset practices to stay connected with your vision of happiness. Is there anything you'd like to share today that our listeners could try?
Absolutely. I have a framework that I've been teaching for years that I get so much feedback on about how simple it is, but yet so powerful. And I would love to share that. It's called the 3 S's. And you may know this one, Linda, because I know you read my book and it's in there as well. And I share this when I speak too, because it is so simple. I always love to say simple is the 4th S of this. So this is something that you can do daily. You can do it as a morning practice. You can do it when you need to build up the clarity and courage before a big event or a date or whatever it is. And really to clear your mind and shift your energy. And it's so simple. So it only takes about maybe a minute or 2 to do, and you just do it until you feel the shift within your body. The first S is smile. So there are actually scientific studies that show that when you do the physical act of smiling, even if you don't feel like it, even if you're faking it, the movement of those muscles in your face triggers your brain to shift into, oh, something happy is happening, something joyful is happening. And you get those neurotransmitters and those chemicals released that immediately shift the way you feel and your energy just from the physical act of smiling. But you do have to hold it for a few seconds. So the first of the 3 S's is smile, and try and hold that for about 17 to 30 seconds. And I like to do a little bit of deep breathing while I'm doing that, get the oxygen flowing in my brain and my blood. And when I start to feel that little energetic shift, I actually hold on to the smile for the next 2 S's. So the second S is say thanks. So we're smiling and we're shifting our energy physically and emotionally. And now we're getting into a place of gratitude. So the first S, smile. Second S, say thanks. And usually I try to think of 1 to 3 things in my mind's eye that I'm really grateful for right now. And it can be something small. And even if it's a rotten day and you're feeling like, I don't have much to be thankful for right now, you can always dig for something, right? If you're laying in bed, you can be grateful for your bed. If you have a glass of water next to you, you can feel grateful for having clean water. Whatever that is, a lot of days for me, I'm grateful for my dog, right? I say thanks for my dog. Her name's Mai Tai. But whatever that is, now you're shifting into the energy of gratitude, which is huge. So what you've done with these first 2 S's, smile and say thanks, is you've laid the foundation for the third S. And Linda, I know you love this one, and we touched on it earlier, and that is set your intention. So I think for me, intentions and setting intentions are so much more powerful when you do it with a clear mind and a grateful heart. And so getting into that place and using those first 2 S's to then get you to where you're setting your intention, whether you're setting your intention for the whole day, for the week ahead, for the year ahead, or for that meeting you're stepping into in a few minutes, setting that intention after you have been in the energy of gratitude and smiling and getting into a place of joy, you are going to head into your day or walk into that room or that date or whatever that is on a completely different level. You're going to glow. So that's the 3 S's: smile, say thanks, set your intention. Don't you love it?
I love it because I love the simplicity of it because it's doable, right?
Yes. Yes.
And it's easy to remember. But like, it's funny because as you were doing it, I'm doing what you said as I'm listening. And you feel the energy shift in your body when you're holding that smile. And when I do it, I love to make my eyes smile too, not just like move my lips. It's like I want to feel the energy of that smile in my eyes. And I caught myself doing that as you were teaching it. And you do feel the difference in your energy.
Absolutely. It's a 90-second energy shift is what this whole thing is. It brings you clarity, more joy. And, I love one of my other mentors, Brendan Bouchard. He always loves to say, bring the joy. When you walk into a room, bring the joy, because people want that more than they want anything else. And it's so true. And don't we want to walk into our life and share joy and be joyful and bring that energy? And this is a little practice that helps with that. Also, I found for me on those dark days when I sometimes just feel low energy, maybe I've been through something or I'm a little stressed, this shifts the energy enough to really bring just some light to those moments. It gets me out of bed. It gets me stirring my tea. It gets me to that place where you can create momentum into creating a better day and lifting yourself out of a funk. So it's a great little practice, not only for bringing better energy to the good days, but also bringing a little shift to the not so great days. And we're all human, right? We go through different seasons. We all have an off day now and then. And this is such a great little framework for that.
It is. And from our personal conversations, gratitude is such a big practice. Louise Hay changed my life 30 something years ago. I remember reading something and she said, gratitude will shift your life. And I can actually remember going, I don't have anything to be grateful for. What the heck is she talking about? But I committed to identifying 3 things in the morning. And it was such a struggle at first. But as I stayed, which is really the energy of your whole framework, once I committed and went into the energy of gratitude, and that's what I heard in your description, something shifts, because within a month, I was feeling what I was writing in those gratitude lists. And then 30, 60 days later, I started adding the evening one. There is something energetic that happens when you tap into gratitude, isn't there? You can it's like the highest vibration along with love and joy, I think, that we can all tap into.
Absolutely, 100%. And what I've found too, first of all, it's life-changing, tapping into that and having some sort of a practice, whether it's the 3 S's or a list or a gratitude journal, whatever it is, to tap into that. It's life-changing. And I have found for me that focusing on the things that I'm grateful for that are already present in my life helps me to get into the space to attract more of that into my life, right? This is how you attract and manifest more things that you would like to see happen in your life. Isn't that the truth?
It is so true. And the thing is, when I love about your framework, it's like, it's not just one. Like, I love my gratitude practice. I love the three together, because it's like I'm smiling, I can feel the energy shifting. Then you go into the gratitude, it elevates what you started in step one. And then you're declaring your intention. To me, it's like declaring it to your soul, to the divine.
Yes.
It's powerful. I could feel it as you were going through it. And so thank you for sharing that framework with our listeners, because it's doable, it's easy, and it's a powerful energy shifter, my friends. And Kristi, we have about 2.5 minutes left. Is there something you want to share that you have coming up, or would you like to share another tip or strategy in the last few moments that we have? Whatever your spirit leads you, my friend.
Sure, absolutely. I'll share a couple more quick tips about the mornings because I believe in that so much. And I love that you mentioned Louise Hay. She was one of my mentors as well. So beautiful. And when I got to work with her years ago, and I shared with her that one of the things I was focusing on teaching was teaching people how to make over their mornings, her eyes lit up and she was so excited. And she was like, that is so important. That is the place to begin. And she really reinforced and drove home with me to keep focusing on that and sharing that with people. So a couple of other little things, just little stuff, because I'm all about small things that have a big return on energy. A couple more little things you can do in the morning to help really just focus on you and support yourself. In addition to doing some kind of a connective practice and focusing on gratitude and avoiding your phone for the first hour or so, definitely think about hydrating. And this is something that we forget, that when we wake up in the morning, we've gone maybe 8 hours without any water. And I learned this reading a scientific study, and I wrote about it in Operation Happiness, that just a 1% dehydration in our body can result in about a 10% drop in energy. And when we wake up in the morning, we're probably at least 1% dehydrated. So drink some room temperature water. You can add a little lemon to it, but make that part of your morning practice. And the other little tip, especially as we're getting older, is to spend about 1 or 2 minutes more, if you can, stretching in the morning, because flexibility as we get older is so important. Stretching, working with the fascia, stretching our muscles, it can help prevent energy, but also it gets the blood flowing. And we need blood and oxygen flowing to our organs and our cells and our brain in order to get our energy up and really start creating the beautiful day ahead that we want to create. So it's so important on every level, hydration and stretching. So those are two physical things you can do in addition to the mindset work that we've talked about. And with that, yes. So I've got a podcast. You mentioned the Joy School podcast. Everyone can find me over on Instagram and Facebook. I have 2 amazing communities there, and I manage them myself, and I love connecting with everyone. And I do have a signature program, which I have just launched, called the Joy School. And we talk about all of this. We do deep dives into all of this with live coaching calls and monthly workshops and all kinds of goodies in there. And that is at jointhejoyschool.com. Anyone can find that information. It's also linked on my website. And I love connecting with everybody. So if you've got thoughts about today's episode, drop me a comment on social media. Be sure to tag Linda, and we can have a little sidebar conversation, because this stuff is just what I'm so passionate about sharing.
Oh, Kristi, I got to tell you, we could do a 3-hour show on all of this, because I love your book. I love the work you're doing in the world. And I want to share some of those links again. So KristiLingSpencer.com and jointhejoyschool.com. You'll find all her social media handles at her website. And Kristi, I am so glad we have been connected for as long as we have. You've had such an impact in my life. I love everything you share on your social media platforms. It's love, it's light, it's tips, it's strategies. I always leave your stream feeling empowered and loved. So I just wanted to say that's the energy that I receive from you on your platform. So thank you for being here and for being such a bright light in the world, my friend.
Thank you so much. And back to you as well. Thank you for all the amazing, beautiful work you do in the world. It has been so wonderful to have you in my light and in my space for the last decade. So I'm grateful. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And until next time, my friends, love, joy, and happiness. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.